In our top story at this hour, the opposition parties are making another attempt to have President Jacob Zuma removed from office. The Economic Freedom Fighters, the UDM and COPE, are approaching the Constitutional Court to have Zuma impeached. The Constitutional Court is due to hear the application by the opposition leaders, that is Julius Malema, Bantu Holomisa and Musiwa Likota, to force President Zuma's impeachment. The three opposition parties argue that the National Assembly Speaker, Baleka Mbete, must order action to be taken against the president. The Democratic Alliance has applied to intervene in the application, and the application follows a ruling that Zuma violated the constitution in the Nkandla matter. The application raises questions about separation of powers between the executive and the judiciary. Here's the basis for the opposition's impeachment plea, and I quote: National Assembly Speaker Baleka Mbete must order action to be taken against the president. The Constitutional Court's judgment on Nkandla provided prima facie grounds for impeachment. Mbete failed to institute a probe into Zuma's conduct after the March 2016 Nkandla judgment. Court must declare that Parliament did not put processes in place to hold Zuma to account. Unquote.
Clearly, this is now the ninth attempt, I think, and I think both the opposition parties have decided to go to the highest court in the land in terms of that. However, we're of the opinion that the court, if it has to, will direct the Speaker of Parliament to do what is absolutely necessary. And remember, it is the Parliament of South Africa, itself, that is going to be able to proceed in terms of an impeachment against the president. So I'm not convinced that the Supreme Court, which is the Constitutional Court, is going to make a decision on behalf of the Parliament. And remember that the courts are only there to interpret the laws. The laws are generally made by Parliament, and that is what we are there for. And the processes that have preceded this have all failed. So, to be honest with you, I don't believe that. I think they'll have minimal success in terms of this, and it will be referred back to the National Assembly to do what is necessary.
Now, joining us on the phone line for a reaction on this story is Professor Sipho Siepe. He is a political analyst. Professor, very good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us. First things first, can we clarify if a constitutional court can force Parliament to impeach the president?
No, I think the courts, including the Constitutional Court, have been very clear about being reduced to dustbin of political battles. The court has made it very clear that the Constitution is clear about the separation of powers. That the Constitution is very clear that if people want to remove the president, the sections of the Constitution are very clear about the process and even the conditions that need to be satisfied. But what is important is the Constitution that says if the president is found to be guilty of misconduct, even serious misconduct, the Parliament can sit and can debate two motions. One is that of a motion of no confidence. One is the one that we call impeachment. But the Constitution has not given powers to the judiciary to remove a president or to force or to enter into the space of Parliament. The recent judgments have always pointed out to the reluctance of the courts to start overreaching or going into a space that is not theirs. So I do not think that this motion, even those who have called for it, I don't think they expect it to be successful. What they do try to do is to continue to keep the whole idea of Jacob Zuma in the public space. It is more about putting pressure on the ANC. So I'd be very surprised if the court can actually say the president must be impeached. What the court will do is to read back what the Constitution says on these matters.
Yeah, Professor, you've actually preempted my next question to you with regards to a separation of powers. But could we say that the opposition parties are perhaps using the judiciary to get victories that they haven't been able to get through elections?
No, definitely, and that is also one of the things that Mogoeng tried to put across, that we should not conduct our political affairs in such a way that they undermine what we call the will of the people. And the only way that you can get the will of the people is through elections. This is why the DA might be correct to suggest that they would rather have an early election, because they know that is the most authentic way of showing what the will of the people are. It will not be what the media and the so-called polls show, because those can always be manipulated, and often than not in South Africa, they show a certain ethnic bias and also a certain class bias.
But would this call for the Democratic Alliance for the dissolution of Parliament and, like you've already alluded to, having early general elections, is it feasible? And what are the constitutional requirements and perhaps implications thereof for holding this early election, should it happen?
No. Parliament can decide that it no longer serves the interests of the people. And that motion by the Democratic Alliance has been defeated even by its own fellow travelers. And EFF has very clearly indicated that one of the things that needs to be respected is that the people did vote for the ANC. The DA may get irritated in as much as the EFF with Jacob Zuma, but they know fully well that there is something called the will of the people. But what you have here is when people become too obsessed with an individual, they no longer are able to see straight. And it will appear that for the DA, they begin to realize that the policies are not going to be speaking largely to the people. So they're trying to say, what is it that we can do that would undermine the ANC? And is to say, let us try to find who are the weakest links in the ANC and start targeting those, with the hope that that will be the way of diminishing the support that the ANC has. Because when it comes to policy, you do not hear the DA and other parties except the EFF suggesting that their policies are any better than those of the ANC.
Professor Siposiepe, good of you to join us this afternoon. We certainly appreciate your analysis and time. Professor Siposiepe, they're joining me over the phone line. He is a political analyst, giving us his reaction with the fact that opposition parties are making another attempt to have President Jacob Zuma removed from office. That's the UDM and the EFF and the DA.